Hey guys, it's me again. There's I feel like there's confusion about my religious beliefs or lack thereof. So I kind of just want to make a video clarifying I am an agnostic atheist, and all that means um is that I can't really say whether there is a God or not, but I live my life as if it didn't exist. And notice that I said it. I didn't say he or she because I don't even think that we can ever know enough about God, um, even to assign some type of gender to it. Um, but yeah, I also want to get into like how I became um an agnostic atheist. Basically, so like I'm Guatemalan. I come from a super religious culture. It's always been part of me, a part of me. It will continue to be like part of my heart still loves Jesus. It's inspired a lot of my changes of heart as of late. Um, but at the same time, I don't think I've ever talked about this, but when I was 14 years old, I went through a traumatic surgery experience. Basically, because of my disability, my legs especially, I'm what they call a spastic quadriplegic, which means that I have no control over any of my limbs. They're all crazy like this, like you see me do in my videos with the crooked hands and all that stuff. That's what it means. I also have other forms of cerebral palsy, but that's the main one. Anyway, um so because of this, the tendons in my legs, they get all scrunched up because I'm sitting all day and I'm tight. And so, as I was growing, thankfully I'm not growing anymore. Um, they would have to go in maybe every 6 years or so. Um, and stretch them out, put me in a cast. After slicing open my legs, stretching out the tendons, and trying to straighten them, they would have to do that every time I had like a significant growth spurt. And so this was what happened when I was 14 years old, and like you guys know that time, how monumental it is for a lot of people in determining their future personality and stuff. And I mean, a, just so much traumatic stuff happened to me during my surgery. For one thing, I had previously been extremely chubby, and so I was at the lowest weight I'd ever been. Now I was short, but still I was like 90-ish pounds when I probably should have been around 105, 110. Um And so yeah, I go into the surgery and all right, everything's normal, right? It's the normal pain. I'm in a cast still. Um and so yeah, eventually something very serious happens. A hematoma developed on my inner thigh, like literally right next to my area. And it got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until one day I was watching, and I still remember it, it's still burned into my brain. Um, I was watching The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou, you know, that Wes Anderson movie, at in bed, and all of a sudden I feel something cold running down my thigh and my area, and I I put my hand down into that area to see what's up, and when I pull my hand out to look at it, I see that it has blood, and I yell to my mother in Spanish, "Mami, estoy sangrando," which means, "Mom, I'm bleeding." And so, um, yeah, we had to call a paramedic friend. If we hadn't known him, I probably would have bled out that day, because my mom, she works doing the type of stuff, but with me it was just too painful for her. She couldn't anyway, and so, you know, I'm there, whatever, right? Um, and at first the doctors were like, "All right, we gotta put an antibacterial strip inside the wound," because there was a literal hole in between my legs and my area, if you can believe that. And like, so they do that, it's not working, it's actually getting worse. It was about to get infected, and so they finally put a wound vac on me. But a wound vac is, those of you that know, that's it's such a complicated process. You gotta put the gauze, you gotta put the thing. It's automatic, but still, it's not a fun process at all. Not fun at all. And so, um, yeah. Eventually, though, I have to go back into the hospital for rehab, right? Post-surgery rehab. So they take off my cast. And of course they tell you, "Oh, it's not gonna hurt, don't worry about it." Of course it hurt. It didn't cut me, obviously, but the shrapnel of the fiberglass cast did actually cut me. I had cuts for a very long time, and in addition to that, they had um put metal things in between my knees to keep them down, and my knee was raw from it, and my legs were completely atrophied, and they're still like that to this day. um so I'm there with and this is a children's hospital, mind you, and every day I have to have the experience of witnessing, like, kids literally dying, them going cold blue, bro. And also, like, another thing too, which I forgot to mention, is that this surgery demolished me. Like, I told you guys I was 90 pounds. I went down to literally 65, 60 to 65 pounds. I was a literal skeleton from that surgery. Um, but anyway, yeah, witnessing kids dying and screaming all day, my man, and I met a few kids. Like there was this one girl with scoliosis that told me she'd never really been able to go to school all that regularly because she'd had I don't know how many surgeries to try to fix that. Uh, and like we would watch movies together, and then there was an 11-year-old boy who one day literally told me he thought he was gonna die after surgery and or before surgery, right? Because he heard that one of the other kids didn't make it. And I mean, what do you want? What do you tell an 11-year-old about that? Can you imagine an 11-year-old being so frank about his own mortality like that? And honestly, that's when I really started to lose my faith. Like that's when I really started questioning and um like and I remember I promised myself that I wouldn't like cry because I needed to be strong for the kids, right? I was one of the oldest ones in there. And so but that day after he told me that I broke down, boy. I broke down, bro. It was one of the most painful things I've ever been through. Um, and yeah, I just realized, and I realize even more now that this life is meaningless. The universe doesn't care about us as much as we may want it to. Um, yeah, it just doesn't care. And honestly, I came into contact with skeptics there as well, and I it really just changed me a lot. Um, that was the main driving force as well as research, right? I was doing my own research. I was reading a lot. I was really interested in the history of Christianity and um it was just a whole bunch of factors, but yeah, man, those were the experiences. I also almost died. I don't know what happened, but I started to basically vomit one day while they were showering me in a gurney, and I almost choked on that and died. Like I also fell out of my bed in the hospital. I was so thin I passed through the railings of the hospital bed, and I also almost died because of that. They put me in fall risk the very next day. um yeah, I just I just didn't have it in me to believe anymore. And as I started learning more things, that became more and more concrete. And at first, I was like your typical like based like all religion is trash and all that stuff, and that sort of roughly coincided with my venturing into another um community of people that are not known for their respect of women, and yeah, so I was one of those. I was your a fedora tipper for sure. Although I didn't use Reddit, I will say that. But then, like especially after I got out of that community, my views started to soften, and they're where they're at now, which is sort of agnostic atheism and a sort of cultural respect and a cultural commitment to the central message of Christianity, which is, you shall love your neighbor as yourself, and you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your mind and all your soul. And also, one other thing which people don't talk about much, but it's the response, at least in the Gospel of Mark, which uh the Sadducee or the scribe gives to Christ, which is this, that that is worth more than all the burnt offerings and sacrifices in the world. And I do believe that goal of loving one another as yourself is worth more than anything physical, anything external in this world. Um and it's a goal worth pursuing, and I'm trying to, and it's a goal in which I can see eventually loving myself and not being bitter about things. But yeah, that's basically the story of how I became an agnostic atheist with a respect for Christianity and really all religions. All right, bye.